Okay, back to some of the laws of Chanukah. Where should one light the menorah? So we're discussing Chabad custom is to light it in the doorway opposite the mezuzah. But which room? So there's different customs. Technically, the first thing you have to keep in mind is safety. If you have little kids running around and you put the menorah in the doorway and the kids are going to run around and topple it over, and God forbid, there's already a yeshiva that burned down this Chanukah. There's a home in Manchester, England that burned down because of the Chanukah candles. I mean, you have to be very, very careful with the menorah. So the first thing you have to keep in mind is safety. But let's say you don't have little babies, just big babies in the house. So then, if for instance, it's the choice of a eating room or a sleeping room, so Halachos says you're supposed to put it in the eating room. Now what happens, and this is another important issue, let's say in the yeshiva, where should the bachrim light? Should the bachrim light in the kitchen, or should they light next to their private dormitory rooms? Like where should they light? So it's interesting, all the yeshivas demand that they light in the dining room. Why? Because it's safety. Then everybody's going to light by their dorm room. You can imagine, God forbid, what can happen. But there's two opinions even in halacha where it's better to light, where you eat or where you sleep. So some poskim say, because where you sleep is your private place, so to speak, versus the big dining room where everybody eats, so you should light in the bedroom. But otherwise, you should light really in the place where somebody eats better. But again, it doesn't matter. You have to put it in the proper place where it's safe to light the menorah. Another thing is like this. What?
Somebody eats in the bedroom, so there's no problem.
If they eat in the bedroom.
In the house, you're doing it in the front door, no? By the main door?
No, you put it by the main door. It's going to blow out in about 3 seconds.
Usually they say.
No, you guys put it in the time of the Gemara, but they used to have protection around it. There was a lot of people put it in the window. That's most people put it in the window. Chabad custom is not to put it in the window for a lot of reasons, and we put it basically by a doorway. Now, let's say tonight's the second night, right? So you have the two candles on the right side of the menorah. Now, which one do you light first? You light the first one or the second one? In other words, do you light the new one first or you light the old one first? So it's not an argument halacha. There's even a tzemach tzedek about it. But the bottom line, the custom is in most places in Chabad also, you light the new candle first. Now some people have a minig that they will use over the same wick. See, today everybody is disposable, everything. Disposable menorahs. The regularly ready-made stuff you just buy, you put it in. Okay, but there's a machlekes in halacha, by the way. Should you use the same wicks again? Or everyday new wicks? What's the logic? The opinion that says you should use everyday new wicks, because in the Beis HaMikdash, every day they had to use new wicks. Which, by the way, you know where they got wicks from in the Beis HaMikdash? They took the old worn out pants of the Kohanim and they cut it into wicks. That's what they did. That's how they got wicks for the menorah in the Beis HaMikdash. Other people say it's better to use the old ones because the old ones burn better. Older wicks burn better than newer wicks. But our custom, even though the Rebbe writes he wasn't able to ascertain what the Frierdiker Rebbe's custom was, but later on the Rebbe wrote that the minig is to use new wicks every night. What?
On a car menorah, does it matter which side is right and which side is left?
A car menorah is not a kosher menorah anyway, so it really doesn't matter. It depends how you want to,
So it doesn't matter. So I'm saying like...
Because for some people it's going to be this way. You put the candles on the right side of the menorah, right? But it depends where you look. If I'm looking this way, this is the right. If I'm looking that way, that's the left. Or whatever.
Not just right.
Huh?
Put it on the wrong side, right?
In England, they put the menorah on the wrong way. Because they drive on the wrong side of the street.
So is the house you put it anywhere?
In a doorway, preferably.
Which doorway? There's many doorways.
Any doorway, which is safe and easy and comfortable and so on. Now what's interesting, you put it, according to our custom, opposite the mezuzah. And the Gemara, in fact, in the Gemara there's a machlekes. There's an argument in the Gemara, which side do you put the Chanukah candles? Do you put it on the right, or do you put it on the left? So, one opinion, the Gemara says the right, on the right side of it, because right is more important than the left. And the other opinion says, no, you put it on the left. And the Gemara says, what's the halacha? You put it on the left. Why do you put it on the left? Because when you have the mezuzah on the right and the menorah on the left, you're surrounded with mitzvahs. Like this, the mezuzah is on the right, the menorah will be on the right. So like this, you have the mezuzah on the right, the menorah on the left, you're surrounded with mitzvahs. But it's very interesting, Halachos says the following. The Gemara says, why do you light it on the right? On the left, because the mezuzah is on the right. You should be surrounded with mitzvahs. What happens if you're in a place where there's no mezuzah? You're in a hotel, whatever. You're in a place, you're renting a place, and you don't have mezuzah because you're not obligated in the mezuzah. So then Halachos says you light it on the right side of the doorway. Because Gemara says the only reason is to be surrounded with mitzvahs, because of mezuzah, but if you don't have mezuzah, then you put it on the right side. Okay. Adlaka, okay. Candles have to burn at least a half an hour after nightfall. I'm just thinking what else, practical things here before we move on. Another very important din. I don't know if we mentioned it or not. We did. But the leftover wicks and oil that you have left over in the menorah, you can't throw out. You have to burn them in a separate fire. Unless, if you make a condition when you light it, that the leftover wick and oil I'm going to be throwing out, then you're allowed to throw it out. But if you don't they become holy from the mitzvah. And therefore you can't benefit from it. You can't benefit from the Chanukah candles. So therefore, you would have to burn it in a separate fire. But if you make a condition beforehand that you're planning to throw them out afterwards, then it's not a problem, you can throw them out.
Can you make that condition the day one and say...
Yeah, it's good. You can make it for the whole Chanukah. Don't make it for the rest of your life, because that's a little bit too much.
So what about if you...
Now, there's a big problem, by the way. People traveling Chanukah, this happens every year, hundreds of phone calls, literally, about people traveling. They're leaving, let's say, LA today at 12 o'clock, and they're flying to Israel, or they're flying to New York, or whatever. And, when do you do? Where do you come? What's the story? Australia, that's just making a bigger problem. Or if somebody flies from here to Israel, and they take the 1 or 2 o'clock flight, whatever the flight is, you can't light candles before you fly. You can't light on the plane. So what do you do? It happens to be a very big problem. So if a guy has family remaining at home, the halacha is the family lights for him, and he's yaitza. He's yaitza from the family, because the mitzvah is on the family at Ishu Beisei. So then, but if not, you have a problem. The bigger problem, by the way, when you go to Australia, there's another, or coming from Australia, where you gain a day or lose a day. So let's say you leave here on the 3rd day of Chanukah, and you get to Australia on the 5th day of Chanukah, because you lose a day. So what do you light? The following, do you light 4, which is for you 4, or do you light like everybody else 5? So the Pashis, you light like everybody else 5. What happens if you come back, so you gain the day? So then the Pashis, you have to light, I don't know, that's not so simple, because then you're going into extra day with a shayla of a bracha, but what?
If a person is going to miss a day, and they don't have family or whatever, can you just appoint a friend to be your shliach to light for you? Is there an issue with that?
Well, the question is, are you going to be yaitza with that? If there's no choice, it's better than not having anything. But a more practical question is, you're invited for a Chanukah party somewhere, to your family or friends or whatever, enemies, whoever invites you to a Chanukah party. So now, where do you light? Do you light by the place where you're eating, or do you light by the place where you're sleeping? Now, logically, you have to light the menorah where you sleep, not where you eat. It doesn't have to be in your room, the bedroom room, but it has to be in the house that you're sleeping in. So if you're, let's say, tonight, right after marriage, invited to somebody's house for Chanukah dinner and whatever, technically you'd either have to go home first and light the menorah, or when you come home later, you light the menorah when you come home. The only problem with that is, technically, you're not allowed to eat a meal before Chanukah candles. So then what the eitzah is, you have no other choice. The din is if you have somebody remind you to light Chanukah candles afterwards, so that helps that you're allowed to eat. But then you need to appoint somebody, designated reminder, or that you should remember to light the Chanukah menorah when you come home. Huh?
You could eat sufganiyah potato, just bread you can't eat.
No, bread or 2 ounces of cake.
Oh, so sufganiyah is more than 2 ounces.
It depends. They have big ones, middle size, small ones.
Nobody eats one. So.
I just told them that says, somebody sent me a clip. Donuts are not antibiotics that you have to eat 2 a day for 8 days. Well, some medicines you take twice a day, sometimes 3 times a day. But that's, by the way, a very big issue. Where do you light? Or people coming home late? What?
LED menorahs for hospitalized patients are okay?
You can't make a bracha on LED or fluorescent. Most opinions also say you can't. But why can't you make a bracha on electric lights? Let's say it's an electric light that has fire to it. Okay, but there's a number of issues. First of all, not all bulbs have fire, right? But there's another major issue. The din is, when you light the menorah, you have to have enough candle or oil to last the proper half an hour. If you put in, let's say, 15 minutes of oil, and then you make the bracha, and then you added more oil, you're not yet to the mitzvah. When you light the mitzvah, the oil has to be in front of you, in the menorah that you're lighting, correct? Now, when you do something electrical, the current keeps coming in. It's not that there's enough current right here.
There's a battery.
I'm saying if it's electricity, not battery. Yeah? So even if it's electricity, you don't have enough current at the time when you're lighting, so therefore you're not yaitz. It's like adding oil. Even battery, then you go into the other shal, is it a fire or not? The battery, the advantage of a battery over electric is you do have the whole battery there present, but the question is it really a fire or not? It's probably not a fire.